So let's just jump right in with a huge question. Who are you? I mean, really, we ask ourselves that all the time. But what if our modern take on psychology, on what makes us, is missing a massive piece of the puzzle? What if there's this ancient blueprint that gives us a way deeper, more complete picture of our inner world? Well, today, we're going to explore exactly that, the Islamic map of the mind. Okay, I want you to actually think about this for a second. Go past your physical body, past that nonstop chatter in your head. What's left? Who are you? Now, this isn't just some late-night philosophical question. According to a tradition of Islamic psychology that's been around for over 1,000 years, the answer lies in this incredible metaphysical architecture of the self. And this blueprint, it kicks off with a pretty wild idea. It suggests that our essence, the real core of who we are, was around long, long before our bodies ever were. So you're not just a product of your DNA and your environment, you're actually an ancient being having an earthly experience. So how much older are we talking? Well, the source texts for this explainer say that the arwah, which are our spirits, were created a full 2,000 years before our physical bodies were even a thing. Just let that sink in. That one idea completely changes the game on where we come from and what we are. Okay, so how does this ancient map actually lay everything out? Well, it divides our inner reality into four separate but totally interconnected dimensions, and getting a handle on these four parts is the key to understanding the whole shebang. And here they are. You've got the ruh, that's the spirit, the nafs, which is like our psyche or our ego self, the qalb, the spiritual heart, and the aql, our intellect. Think of them like the four main points on the compass of your inner world. Each one has a totally crucial job to do. Let's start at the very foundation, right at the beginning of our existence, the ruh. This is where the story of you really gets started. The ruh is our divine spark. It's described as this pure, unchanging essence, a creation that's actually considered greater than the angels, that was breathed directly into us. It's the part of you that is always, always connected to your source, no matter what. And just listen to how personal the source material makes this connection. This quote from the Quran, it doesn't sound like some distant automatic process, right? It sounds incredibly intimate, like the sharing of a divine essence. That's what establishes our inherent dignity and our spiritual nature right from the start. All right, so we've gone from the pure, constant ruah, and now we're going to move to the nafs. This is the part of ourselves we're probably most familiar with. It's the center of our personality, our desires, and yeah, all those constant inner battles. You know, the sources describe the nafs as this really fascinating mashup of the earthly and the heavenly. It's basically our I in this world. It's the part that feels, wants, and tries to get things. But here's the thing. This self isn't set in stone. It exists on a whole spectrum of development. And this slide just illustrates the two paths for the nafs so perfectly. On one hand, it can be a self made of nur, or light, guided and supported by our higher intellect, the aql. Or it can become a self of fire, just driven by base desires and supported by what the text called devilry. Which direction it goes? Well, that's totally up to us. So this journey of the nafs is often broken down into three stages. It starts as the commanding self, which you'll probably recognize as that impulsive part of us, kind of like what modern psychology calls the id. It just wants what it wants right now. But with some work, it can grow into the blaming self, which is basically the birth of our conscience, the part that sees its own flaws. And the ultimate goal, to reach the self at peace, a state of real tranquility and content. So if the ruh is our divine starting point and the nafs is the powerful engine of our personality, then what's steering this thing? What's our map? Well, that's where the last two dimensions come in, the qalb and the aql. Together, they are our inner compass. First up is the qalb, or the spiritual heart. Now, we're not talking about the physical organ that pumps blood. This is the very core of our being, the home of our intuition. The great 11th century scholar Al-Ghazali had this amazing metaphor for it. He called it a mirror. When you polish it through self-awareness, it reflects truth perfectly. But if you neglect it, it gets veiled or rusty, and it totally distorts your perception. That's why it's called the commander of the body. A clear heart points you towards what's good and true. And working right alongside the heart is the aql, the intellect. This is our ability to reason, to use logic to tell right from wrong. So if the heart feels or perceives truth, the intellect is what processes it, helping us make good, ethical choices. And get this, one tradition says the aql was the very first spiritual entity ever created, literally designed to be the bridge between the unseen spiritual world and our physical, material reality. When one of the imams in the source texts was asked to define the aql, this was his answer. And it's so beautiful and powerful. The intellect isn't just for solving math problems. Its ultimate purpose is spiritual. It's the tool that helps us recognize and worship the divine, and by doing that, attain paradise. Okay, so we've got our 4 components: the spirit, the psyche, the heart, and the intellect. When they all work together, they create this holistic, bio-psycho-spiritual model of who we are. And this is where the map becomes this incredibly powerful tool for understanding our day-to-day experience, what we could call our inner weather. You ever just feel out of sync, anxious, conflicted, or just off? Well, this framework suggests that those feelings are actually symptoms. They're signs that these 4 dimensions are out of alignment. Maybe your desiring self, the nafs, is totally ignoring the wisdom of your intellect, the aql. Or maybe your spiritual heart, the qalb, has gotten clouded and just can't see things clearly. So a state of inner peace, of true well-being, is a state of alignment. It happens when our intellect is guiding our desires, when our spiritual heart is seeing reality clearly, and when all of that is staying connected to our foundation, the ruh. That is the goal of spiritual development. And all of this brings us to what might be the most empowering part of this whole ancient map. It doesn't just describe your inner world, it gives you the power to actually shape it. This quote from the sources is, well, it's profound. It's telling us that we have been given both the illness and the cure. We have the ability to diagnose ourselves and to heal ourselves. The map shows us where things are out of balance, and wisdom gives us the tools to fix it. So at the end of the day, this isn't just some abstract theory to think about. It's a practical guide. It's a toolkit for looking inside, for understanding the dynamics of your own soul, and for actively working to polish that mirror, to purify your heart, and to align your entire being with your highest purpose. And that really leaves us with one final question to chew on. Now that you've seen a piece of this blueprint, this incredible ancient map of the human mind, how does that change how you see yourself? Knowing that these 4 dimensions are constantly at play inside you, how are you going to choose to navigate your inner world?